Hello, welcome to Encore. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rochelle Harrison-Pless. Coming up on today's cinema show.
I have to get us out of here before there's no time left.
Je suis fou, j'ai la folie d'un être humain.
Mich hält nix zu Hause.
Kennst du kein Heimweh?
Was ist Heimweh?
And I'm joined by France 24's film critic Lisa Nesselson. Hello, Lisa. Good to see you. We kick off with a historical epic set against the backdrop of the 1915 Armenian Genocide, a term fiercely contested by Turkey. Now, Lisa, director Terry George plunges audiences into this heartbreaking episode of atrocities with some star power provided by Christian Bale and Oscar Isaac.
Yes, he does. The current resident of the White House has made bold-faced lies trendy, alas. But sadly, denial in high places is nothing new. For a century, over a century, certain people in certain countries have gone on vehemently denying that something that happened really happened, and that would be the Armenian Genocide, the systematic killing of 1.5 million people during Ottoman rule. Now, this film is ambitious, well-documented, features some very fine actors, and puts into an easy-to-understand, if hard-to-comprehend framework, how the idea took hold that Armenians need to be persecuted and subsequently slaughtered. Terry George, who you'll recall made Hotel Rwanda, says he was moved and motivated by such films as Schindler's List and The Killing Fields, Genocide. And while this movie, The Promise, is less elegant than those are, it's involving and watchable. Oscar Isaac plays Mikhail, who leaves his village to study in the big city of Constantinople in 1914. Before he goes, he makes the title promise to come back and marry a lovely local woman. The fact that her father is providing the dowry that will cover his medical school expenses probably has a lot to do with that promise, but he meets an equally lovely and much more adventurous woman, Anna, played by Charlotte Le Bon. She's of Armenian heritage, but has been studying in Paris. Their mutual friend, dashing American journalist Chris Myers, played by Christian Bale, also loves her. He's the kind of journalist I admire most. Hard-nosed, honest, obsessed with accuracy and with telling the outside world important stories. Let's take a look.
What are you doing here?
Were you with this bastard last night?
Please calm down, all right? Listen to me. Listen to me. Mesrab has been arrested and Lena is alone with the girls. We have to go right now.
Mr. Myers, New York is waiting.
Anna.
We must go, Chris.
Anna! Mr. Myers, New York. We will lose the connection.
Armenian men are being slaughtered in their villages. Their women and children are being driven into the desert to be murdered. Send that!
So, Lisa, the heavy, harrowing subject matter is intertwined with a standard love triangle.
Yeah, you saw the blend of the two topics there, and they weave in and out like that. His personal life and Associated Press on the only phone line. You know, what do I do? When World War I breaks out, the Turkish hierarchy turns on Armenians and decides they must be exterminated. The neighborhoods where they've lived peacefully are ransacked. Our hero is beaten and stripped of his status. His excellent Turkish friend sticks his neck out for him with harrowing results. The journalist, who at one point is slated to be executed as a spy, struggles to get his reports out into the world where diplomatic incidents result. This film does a really good job of showing how a familiar reality can be turned inside out overnight on the flimsiest of premises. It's a Spain-American production, and the entire budget was provided by an Armenian businessman, Kirk Kerkorian, who just wanted the Armenian genocide to be depicted on film and didn't care about turning a profit.
Now, Lisa, just quickly, there's also a strange tale of fake news in connection with this movie.
There is. At this time a year ago, the film had been shown exactly 3 times at a festival, so only a few thousand people had ever seen it, and yet on the Internet Movie Database, extraordinarily, 86,000 100,000 ratings for the film showed up, and 55,000 of them were 1 star out of 10, which shows that genocide deniers were hard at work, you know, saying, no, this never happened, therefore this film is no good.
Okay, well, Lisa, you spoke to Terry George recently. You can catch that interview here on France 24 this Thursday at 12:15 and 5:15 p.m. Paris time. Right, so there's also an Armenian factor at work in our next film, a French family drama called La Villa, or The House by the Sea, written and directed by Robert Gedigian, who has Armenian heritage.
Indeed, Robert Gedigian is a prolific, independent-minded French filmmaker who has directed over 20 feature films and who almost always works with a sort of in-house stock company of the same actors, including his wife and muse, Ariane Ascaride. In 2015, he addressed the fallout from the Armenian Genocide in a film called, in English, Don't Tell Me the Boy Was Mad, based on a true assassination attempt. Now, I've liked several of his films quite a bit, but I find myself in the depths of cognitive dissonance on this one, this new one, because I think it is a stiff, well-intentioned dud, but a cross-section of top French media outlets, the papers are full of it, are praising it to the skies. They think it's touching and important. I think it's unconvincing and annoying. I saw this last month as the closing night film at the Vienna International Film Festival, and the audience, who were reading German subtitles, were absolutely underwhelmed. I, of course, understood the French, and I found the French dialogue mostly irritating, just like the characters.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, there aren't any subtitled clips of the film, which is about 3 siblings reunited in their childhood home in Marseille after their father suffers a stroke. Lisa, tell us more about the film.
Well, the patriarch of the family seems near death, and so his 3 children gather together. One son runs the family restaurant in a once likely workers' quarter. The other son is there with a girlfriend half his age, and their sister, played by Ariane Ascaride, has come from Paris and is in a permanent standoffish bad mood. A fisherman half her age courts her. Serious military patrol the area looking for illegal aliens, and the themes of passing time and family ties are lovely, but French viewers find this charmingly vivid and touching. I find it smarmy and unconvincing.
Oh dear, okay. Moving on to a film from veteran documentary maker Raymond Depardon, a devastating look at madness, patients who've been forced into psychiatric care. What's the significance of the title 12 Days?
Well, it turns out that in France, 92,000 people a year, that's about 250 a day, are placed in psychiatric wards without their permission. And by law, as of September 2013, a hearing must be held before 12 days have gone by to decide whenever someone is committed without his or her consent. A solo judge specialized in personal freedom decides whether each hospitalization should continue or not. Raymond Depardon pulls off the neat trick, I think, of being both impartial and compassionate, as he shows us an array of involuntary patients in a French psychiatric hospital. Now, the 10 individuals we're showing here were chosen from 72 filmed hearings conducted by 4 different judges, 2 men and 2 women. Just last November and December, some patients agreed that they absolutely belong in what we used to call the loony bin or the nut house, and others begged to differ during their hearing. Whenever the patient says it's clear that they are actually being listened to, and we come to understand that the judges have seen it all and heard it all, and that their legal representatives are just trying to put the most positive spin possible on their clients' often heartbreaking circumstances.
Right.
One woman, an orphan who has been institutionalized over half her life, says she wants to be released just so she can kill herself in peace. A 40-year-old man who's served prison time appears fairly reasonable until we begin to understand the full magnitude of his delusions as they emerge. An immigrant from Angola who stabbed a woman 8 years ago thinks it's high time they let him out, and he can't even pronounce schizophrenia, let alone understand that he's suffering from it. None of the interactions come across as a sham or an empty formality. Patients are treated with respect, at least in the hearings room. Let's take a look.
Autour de moi, il y avait 12 personnes, 12.
Il faut de nombreuses personnes pour imposer la contention à quelqu'un.
12 personnes autour de moi pour m'attacher. En 2 minutes, j'avais plus de montre, plus rien. Ça, c'était très violent.
Mais le docteur ne peut pas faire tout. Il y a moi aussi.
Certes.
Il y a moi, il y a mon ordre aussi. C'est moi qui dois obéir.
And between these very sober, fascinating interviews, Depardon shows us the color-coded corridors of the facility where people are shuffling around. They seem to be under heavy medication, but there's also genuine and sometimes inadvertent humor in the midst of sadness and a lot of administrative formalities. One interviewee posits that he may be crazy, but so is everybody else. And personally, I think you'd be crazy to miss this if you have the opportunity to see it.
It sounds fascinating, Lisa. I will be checking it out. And finally, Western is a film about German construction workers in Bulgaria. It was one of 3 finalists jostling for the Lux Prize. Is that a big deal?
Although Western didn't win, the awards were announced on November 14th. The Lux Prize is a big deal because every year the European Parliament in Strasbourg picks one film out of 3 finalists that they think best represents and defends European cultural heritage identity and shows what European filmmakers can do. Europe. So the winner was Sami Blood, about the indigenous people in Nordic areas and the threat to their way of life and language due to cultural insensitivity and especially due to global warming, that thing that doesn't exist. The other contestants were Beats Per Minute from France, about the early days of the AIDS crisis, and Western, a contemporary tale of German construction workers who are sent to an enclave in Bulgaria on the border with Greece, and what happens when people from one place are plunked down in another place and may feel superior to the people that they're with. Do you stick to yourselves? Do you try to mix with the locals who may or may not want you to be there, may or may not appreciate your presence? And how do you do that when you don't have a language in common? The writer-director grew up in Germany, fascinated by Westerns and the code of the lone cowboy. So you see a lot of staring into the distance, smoking cigarettes, contemplating the horizon. And she has made a leisurely and affecting film.
Okay, one to check out. We'll leave you with a clip of Western. Lisa, thank you very much for that. Catch up with past cinema shows on our website and connect with us on social media. Keep it right here on France 24. Lots more coming up.
Hey, Neuer. Und warst schon mal auf der Garage? Bin hier, um Geld zu verdienen. Und, bist du ein Schlitzohr?
Die ist komplett verrückt geworden, oder was? Hast du schon mal an die Einheimischen gedacht?
Ja, nur. Откъде това момче? Германия.
Браво и на двамата, браво. Колко ви си говорите с този немец?
Die Fahne ist weg. Da muss er...
Reporters, presented by Mark Owen.
The world's first climate refugees flee the Caribbean island of Barbuda, since devastated by Hurricane Irma. The authorities took the unprecedented decision to evacuate the entire population to the neighbouring island of Antigua, where they are now living in makeshift accommodation.
The larger countries have not quite stepped up. They are really the profligate users of fossil fuel. So clearly they're contributing to climate change, to warmer seas, more frequent and ferocious storms or hurricanes. And at the same time, we're not seeing that type of responsibility in terms of assisting in loss and damage.
Our reporters have been to meet some of those who have returned to the devastated island and still hope for support from the international community.
Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.